Okay, let's try something new. Let's just hang out and read. Please just try HTMX. HTMX, yes, I love HTMX. I'm in love. I think, yeah, that's how the web was supposed to be. Web pages were supposed to be documents, not applications. I mean, I get it. Sometimes some stuff is an application, like, I don't know, Discord web version or some chat application. They're application, but vast majority of stuff I click on every day is just a document. So why does everybody need React to make a document? And yeah. And yeah, like you're just gonna drop a bunch of nonsense if you just use something like HTMX. HTMX is, in my opinion, just how the HTML was supposed to be. I remember back in the day, the HTML, was just some static pages, and then JavaScript happened, and the idea of JavaScript was just add a little bit of interactivity to those pages. And then it kind of grew like a cancer, like overtook the host, and now nobody knows how to render, to send just damn HTML back. And they need tens of JavaScript frameworks because everybody just uses JavaScript and forgot that the JavaScript was supposed to be an add-on to the HTML, not the other way around. And then I hear comments that sending HTML response feels gross. I mean, that's what web was supposed to be. And now everybody just thinks JSON out because yeah, I don't know. Complex client-side management. Yeah, you probably don't have complex side. I see React pages being basically static pages all the time. Complex client state, yeah. Though there is like this unpoly and what is it called? Shoot, I forgot. What is that? They have signals. I forgot. Did I use it somewhere? What is it? HTML framework. No, it's like a JavaScript framework. Signals. Yeah, what was it? Hold on, HTMX. Where was it? Da-da-da. Talk, reference, essays. Shoot. HTML, JavaScript, client-side frameworks. I forgot the name. Of course, none of those. Oh, Alpine. There is Alpine and Alpine Ajax, right? Yeah, something like this. This is okay. Yeah, I think Alpine plus Alpine Ajax. Probably I have a slight preference nowadays over HTMX. But I lack the kind of signals and client-side reactivity. Sometimes you just need a little bit of it for a nice UX, and Alpine Ajax that's what it needs. Anyway, let's read a little. I created HTMX. Oh, what was his name? I'm so bad at names. Okay, yeah. Yeah, those templates of like just something, it kind of got old. What does it just make a. Is that like. What? No, that's. Okay, whatever. Uh, yeah, unpoly, in my opinion, is a little bit too much. I love unpoly documentation as well, but I find it a bit too complex. Exactly. For even simpler use cases, I often use Alpine Ajax. Yep, which is the Alpine plugin giving you links and forms only, because progressive enhancement, basic Ajax capabilities. Yeah, my recommendation as well. Um, I don't know. Maybe I looked at Unpoly and it, if I recall correctly, it's just too much stuff, and I don't want it. Yeah, more complete framework. Exactly. I don't want a framework. I just want a library. See, you don't need all this. Yeah, yeah. All of you just write super big application, web applications. Sure thing. Everybody is just writing those big application, and then everything is just a document, really. Oh, there we go. Response handling. Every endpoint returns 3 different HTML fragments. Yeah. I mean, depends on what you're doing. Like, if you're really writing an application, then yeah, you need something like Qt or GTK on desktop to kind of build a full web interface. But the page I'm just looking at, this is a document. There's not that much going on here. You just render it. And then most stuff is like that. Yeah, I think the biggest problem with like well, there's a lot of problems with a like introducing something like HTMX. One is, in my experience, a lot of develop like development teams, they split themselves between people that know how to write stuff on the backend and people that know how to handle all the nastiness of like a client side world. I mean, yeah, HTML and CSS and making things look good and accessibility. There's a lot of stuff there, so it's hard to fit it all in one developer. So the um, this natural split gives people a kind of reasonable boundary around which they just need to agree on the JSON they send to each other, and uh, yeah, and they hope they don't have to touch the other part, and they can focus on what they're good at. Um, yeah, and I think in like smaller projects, especially single person or like just few people that are willing to tackle on both sides, um, that boundary is just a additional overhead and a constraint, and like a lot of bloat is introduced, especially on the front end, uh, just to throw away everything that HTML and hypermedia were supposed to be and substitute it with this JavaScript machinery that is supposed to give you the whole application. Um, yeah. Yeah. I was able to find architectural patterns that work smooth as glass. Or maybe I should make it bigger because, yeah. Here's what my HTMX apps have: single purpose endpoints. Each endpoint returns one thing. Well, I sometimes return like a whole page or just the part that the endpoint is about, depending on HTMX header. But yeah, it's kind of a you just that it's not supposed to be an API. It's just a kind of an ad hoc endpoint returning HTML, and because it's kind of tightly coupled to the front in a hypermedia with like HTMX, because the client side is tightly coupled with a backend side, they can just work in a lockstep. Like you don't need to worry about compatibility and maintaining APIs. If you need things to work differently, you just write yourself new ad hoc endpoints, and they always work together at the same time. And that's kind of the beauty of it. Um, the backend is kind of intimately familiar with the state of a front end because it generated it. And I think that's what's spooking people used to the more traditional kind of client side versus backend development model, because they're expecting those two to be decoupled. Yeah, and if you don't harness this easiness due to the coupling, then you're throwing away the whole benefit, and you're left only with the problems. Anyway, preferences like font theme updated them immediately. The save is fire and forget with no response needed. Simple error handling. Most endpoints either succeed, return HTML, or fail HTTP code. Yep. No fragment orchestration, not returning 3-5 fragments. Use HTMX swap OOB sparingly. Agreed. Here is how I update fonts on screen in user prefs. User selects font, JS updates body class immediately. HTML Ajax saves in the background, done. Yep. Versus anti-patterns you're describing. User submit font, backend validates, returns success fragment or error fragment or partial update or reject signal. Frontend must handle all cases. Yeah, it's just like I cannot blame people, because if you start working on certain model and you're used to it, then it's hard to change your ways. Like let's not fool ourselves. I'm also kind of full of habits and mental models that it's painful for me to change. Though I kind of quite often try to change something in how I do things, just to keep the kind of a brain flexibility. Like it's a recommendation I heard somewhere is try to brush your teeth with your left hand from time to time, just to let your brain activity kind of do something different than usual. Even though it's inconvenient, it's good for you. Like that's kind of the opening and staying flexible requires some minor pain that you should be able to tolerate. How do you handle HTTP errors? Yeah, I think the handling of errors in Alpine Ajax was kind of nicer than in HTMX. When I was using it last time somewhere, I was much more pleased with it. Like I was able to get to the point where I had indication that the request was sent, and smoothly displayed any validation errors without any thinking about it anymore. Like there was a pattern, and it was a very natural pattern. At this moment I forgot which project I was using Alpine Ajax last. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not going to be looking for it now, but yeah. Yeah. Frontend and backend must agree on every scenario. When is this not the case? Yeah, and this is I suspect the hidden assumption is front end and back end are written by different people. This is the like hypermedia requires you to be on both sides, and I think for both, like for people that are used to working on either of those sides, it's gonna be uncomfortable. Um, yeah, this very much this. This is how web dev evolved in the last 20 years. Thus, it's considered normal that backend team splits out some JSON and doesn't care what the front end does. Yeah, that's just I just my endpoint throw this JSON. Here is some, what do you call it, JSON schema or whatever. Read it and write your front end. Um, I mean, it is some way to scale the social layer of people working on it. As I said before, just there's so much in software engineering, and I don't think everyone wants to be like kind of what I'm trying to be. I kind of want to know all, and I don't have to be 100% in everything, but I want to be 80, 90% in anything I touch. And um, yeah, and I'm always curious how is everything working, but that requires a lot of time. And not ever like people have better things to do than rot in front of the computer all life. Can't blame them. Um, yeah, but if you're willing to tackle both client and server side, then something like HTMX, the hypermedia, is just better. It works better. I did both sides, and it kind of in some teams is often painful that the client side guys wants to do something, but they cannot do the backend changes they need. They don't have the APIs. They will throw some workarounds. They make too many requests. Everything is slow. Everything is clunky. While if while the backend change oftentimes is not that difficult to make anyway. And if you're either front end or server side uh, developer and you're willing to, then a lot of possibilities are opened for you to just get stuff done efficiently uh, if you just adjust a little bit your expectations. Yeah. Man, I did try HTMX and I was hopeful right until I saw how it polluted my code base. I can't say that I have the answer, but writing a pure Go app, I'm currently using one giant CSS file, custom styling, and inline HTML. And now I'm at the breaking point, so I'm planning to move to Tailwind and Go templates. But honestly, I was hopeful for HTMX, so I need to properly see the use case, which I don't know it is. In like the other video I just uh, posted, um, yeah, I show how I work with mouth templating, and then in the application I would just have the kind of rendering HTML code, uh, oftentimes thrown into separate modules, kind of the utility methods. But other than this, what does it mean polluted? Like, what is the backend code doing other than uh, generating the response? And if the response is the page, then it's polluted with what it is doing. HTMX is great if you only consider the front end, but it does require fixing up backend too much. A framework like that needs to integrate the front and backend fairly tight to have a good react. Yes, that's yeah. I think that's exactly correct. Like you have to not be afraid. Like you're up. This whole like splitting responsibilities in software without some overlap oftentimes leads to terrible code because just the two sides don't understand each other. It's like I don't know, a bad relationship when there's not enough communication. And I think to make good software, you have to be able to step out of your boundary and kind of look at things from the perspective of your user, from the perspective of your database, from the perspective of a system admin, from the perspective of uh, your DevOps, like how you deploy it. You need to consider a lot of things to make good trade-offs. And yeah, the siloing that I only write client, I mean, I understand why, but it doesn't work too well on a technical level. With respect to Datastar, yeah, Datastar, I think so. Datastar is kind of better, but the author, in my opinion, is too adamant about this model of SSE. I think in HTMX you can bring in a plugin and send SSE or WebSockets updates, so you can kind of update your front end as you please by just sending notifications. In Datastar, it's kind of you're kind of forced to it, even though it's not always the best model. And I think everything in it last time I was playing with it was too Golang centric. And the authors were very opinionated, and I could tell that their viewpoint is very Go side with respect, for example, to error handling. Like, you cannot send a response with an update and an error code, because no, that's not what you're supposed to do, and we're not even gonna give you a waste because we know better. So I don't. I'm very opinionated myself, and yeah, I oftentimes have like strong opinions about how users of my code should do things, or what is the best way to do something. But I don't go out of my way uh, to force anyone to do anything. And I understand that for every golden rule, for any rule, there are good exceptions, like reasonable exception. And the world is complicated, and people have requirements that are hard to predict. So in my software, I tend to put a lot of escape hatches and manual overrides and ways for people to opt out of the best path, because there are there are reasons, like people need to do something that typically does not seem like the best approach. So I don't want to be making decisions for everyone, and that was something that was really off-putting in Datastar approach. I might get back to it because the core idea there and kind of the implementation is good, and the kind of a server side event update model in many cases is the best one. I'm like, yeah, it's just not always. Um, yeah. HTMX is less noisy if you integrate it into your backend framework. You just move the noise to backend. What is the noise? Like that's like the fact that you have to generate HTML. Just I don't know. I don't have much noise. Like that's just your concern of your client and server become part of the same code base, and that's not noise. That's just um, bringing them together. It's like separating everything. Like your this should be separate, this should be separate. Separation of concern is often taken the wrong way. With it's similar with Tailwind. I mean, I'm Tailwind is uh, it's a different trade-off, and it has its stronger and weaker sides. But it's hard to deny that the fact that you bring the styling kind of to the same place while blowing it and making it maybe kind of more unwieldy is making it a single unit that is easier to analyze, and you don't have to invent CSS name classes, etc. And yeah, I it does make sense. Nowadays, I started playing with, what is it? BAM? EBAM? ABAM? What is this? CSS BAM naming scheme, or what was it? Something like that. Oh, there's so much stuff. BAM. Yeah, and I think I was using ABAM because I think I was a more useful adaptation of BAM. I think this uh, the author here is right about everything here. It's just a better than the original BAM in in my opinion. So I was playing with that. It makes sense though. Really, this, like, is it an atom module or what is it? What is it? Organism or, yeah, organism? It's an atom molecular organism. In my code, I was like, is this already an organism or still a molecule, etc. And it is it still was quite a bit of kind of an overhead, because then you almost to all elements of your HTML you have to add this ABAM designator, so you don't have to spend time inventing CSS names, but mechanically you just have to add this according to this scheme to almost everything, um, which I think was better overall, but also was not. It wasn't like a silver bullet that made this boundary between styling and structure of your DOM. They're kind of they're kind of separate, but they're so together because they're accomplishing to accomplish certain UX. You need to have the right DOM and right styling, and then they're they're separate, but they're really so intertwined that, yeah, the relation of them is kind of a problem in itself. Anyway, ABAM, I think that's my go-to right now. Like I wish I had some macro or tooling or something that would kind of get rid of this repetitiveness of adding this classes to almost every structural element. Um, and like that, so intuition tells me that it should be kind of possible to automate it, and then it would be really smooth. You could kind of have all the benefits without doing the work. Um, but yeah, I don't know. A lot of spot transfer more data than the front end actually needs. One team I work was sending formula over the wire to, yeah, this is another thing. Like when you work on JSON APIs, then it's hard to have a very fine grained API for every single use case and need that your client code might have. So it's very common for the JavaScript to make a request to tons of JSON just to pick a couple of values from there. Because to make it more lightweight, you would need a new endpoint, you would need worry about new versioning, backward compatibility, and so on. And no one has time for this, so you just overfetch. And developers, when they're testing, it works great for them because it's all local or cached. And in practice, when you're on your phone, etc., it becomes very painful. Yeah, even for downloads 2 megabytes of Java, it's often simply because the site is badly written. I mean, yeah, that's what it comes down to. Just like it's a downside of HTMX that you need to uh, have your developers worry about backend and frontend at the same time. In the same way, the split of JSON APIs leads to two sides not having perfect APIs between each other. Like, just, yeah. yeah, it is the organization. Like that's almost all tech comes down to organization and social problems, and that the code itself can, in theory, could always be improved. The problem is it's just like there are social aspects of it why it doesn't get improved, and certain technologies and patterns kind of steer people and groups towards certain results. Yeah, I used HTMX on a personal project of mine. Other than HTMX itself, it used Go templates, Tailwind for CSS. As a backend dev with almost no professional front-end experience, I was able to replicate a fairly large and feature-rich React app using it. Yeah, that like that's where those hypermedia frameworks were best, when a backend developer is not afraid to get their hands dirty in HTML and CSS. Yeah, storing passing state between too many fragments. Um, Session. I think that if I understand it correctly, what I do is the state is in some kind of a session that I have in every request handler, which knows what's going on. I mean, it gets more complicated when there's a lot of client state that somehow needs to interact with the server side. But in HTMX, the whole goal is to eliminate as much of client side state and move it to the backend. But for like UA's reasons, there are certain elements that can't. But usually this should be kind of surface layer, like I don't know, focus or certain things becoming hidden. But even that can be just like the backend is supposed to drive the view that the web browser is displaying. So there shouldn't be state on the front end. Lots of little fragments depending on each other. I began struggling to maintain a clean mental model. What's going? Yeah, when this is like when the HTMX app kind of start breaking down. When you have a lot of little fragments that interact with each other, then you're starting. This is like a sign that you're developing an app and not a document. And it's possible to work with it for quite a complexity with HTMX, but yeah, and I would say React is more like functional programming. HTMX, I mean, kind of. I guess there. I see the point, not the goal, but it's I think this I see what the poster here is aiming at, but I think the metaphor is a little off. Uh, yeah, made it difficult to rewrite the front end in React. Blah blah blah. In perfect world, I would rewrite the Python backend in Go, but I have to be able. I have to table the data for now. The reason the LLM tags, while ultimate choice for manual development, my experience in last year is that LLMs struggle with the glue required for complex UI teams in HTMX Alpine. I don't know. I used the LLMs in my project and it does perfect job. I did not see it struggling with HTMX, and even with Rust, Maud, I don't think there is that many kind of content using this, and LLM was generalizes over those because Maud is kind of just a more compact syntax for HTML. Yeah. For new project, Go React will now my default. If I have to write something myself again, God, I hope not. I may use HTMX. I don't know. LLM works great with HTMX for me. The I guess it kind of depends on the maybe complexity. Yeah. I feel like the worst of both worlds. What am I missing? I get server-side rendering. I can boot my server and everything is there. If my model changes, I can update the view. It's cohesive. I get client side rendering. The backend returns data, the frontend decide what to do with it. It's a clear separation. This seems like a worst of both world paradigm where the backend needs to be intimately aware of the frontend. I don't know what the like intimately aware of frontend context. Just the backend is rendering the context. There is not that much to be aware. Yeah, like you don't have to invent all your APIs and version it and this and that. Yeah. Can someone who's adapted HTMX for a large app report about front-end server costs? HTMX servers serves fully backed HTML that needs to be created on the backend. That is more processing than sending the raw data to the front end and baking the HTML there. No, it isn't because of mostly because like the overfetching, and you're not gonna have a perfect APIs that send just the part that you need. You're gonna get a bunch of JSON and you're gonna throw away most of it in practice. Yeah. And then like the processing, rendering this HTML in something like a Rust is so fast. Like even in a slow language like Python, it just doesn't matter comparing to like the cost on the of sending it over the wire. Um, yeah, and then your server typically, I mean, typically if you have like a $5 VPS like I use, then maybe not so much, but it's still pretty powerful. And if you have a proper server, it's gonna be way more powerful than, for example, a mobile device trying to display it. On top of it, the mobile device have to run the whole HTML rendering, styling, and whatnot. So it has plenty to do just to show that page and make it look good. While the server just have to generate some HTML. So being able to offload the client and do it on the server is actually a benefit for the user. Yeah. I don't know. I generally think that yeah, HTMX is kind of the whole thing is more, what do you call it, like crafty. And it requires some craftsmanship. The result you're gonna get is gonna be smaller, faster, better, but it's harder to kind of split it and coordinate it with a group of people that don't want to do the craftsmanship and they just want to get stuff done and move on. And I think that's kind of a big problem. Yeah, the whole like 16 kilobyte minified is a lot. I mean, I love keeping things small, fast, efficient, but 16 kilobytes is nothing. I like if every web page just sent, I don't know, half a megabyte of data, then the world would be awesome. The problem is not just there's like the websites will throw at you megabytes of just JavaScript tracking you from advertisers. Yeah, and then like this being 16 kilobytes of HTMX being slimmed down to 1 kilobyte just doesn't make any difference. Um, yeah, not necessary. HTMX is a great idea, but it's not necessary anymore. We're very close to invokers being baseline, And that will take care of plenty of HTMX what designed to do. Between features like that and web components, I'm very happy to stick with plain HTML. No framework, no web component, do not draw from a core module or anything. Also, just a suggestion because it's not technically wrong. The example of sometimes needing auto-completing search is probably not the best one. Okay, but whatever. I mean, I'm not that familiar with invokers. My understanding is that on the React side, it's kind of just like HTMX is backend encroaching on the front end and wanting to be on control of the client. The other side, the kind of React side, they want to encroach on the backend, as in the client, the JavaScript is going to be in control and invoking code on the backend. Because this rift between server and backend is inconvenient. So like the game there is people trying to bridge it. Yeah, is it gonna work? To me, it's like an RPC system, which is gonna be too implicitly hidden. But yeah, invokers don't give you what HTML gives you out of the box. If you want to, for example, have an invoker command to fetch a resource and swap it into the page, you have to write custom JS for that. Then the thing that HTML gives you out of the box, along with error handling, progress indication support, history support, animation transition, and a host of other features. If you don't need and want all this and are happy with Words UX, then of course you don't need HTMX. Ray, your suggestion data list makes sense. Okay, I don't care about the data list. Well, why not have a benefits of Invoker but today with HTMX? HTMX could eventually switch its implementation to use invokers under the hood in the future, and you would have a convenience using declarative behaviors on your buttons today. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm completely confused. I probably am. Not maybe about what invokers are, so I'm not gonna comment too much on that. That's like really my framework is 4 kilobytes zipped. Like, dude, no one cares. Like, I'm trying to keep it lean, but even my favicon is probably gonna be like a kilobyte just to have this. Yeah, let's check. I have a I can't type. Yeah, let's check it. I don't even know. This is like as lean of a page as I can. There we go. Oh, yeah, I embedded a YouTube video here. There you go. 2.6 megabytes. There goes my lean website. Yeah. Like, yeah, where's the file? There we go. How's it? Okay, well, my favicon is half a kilobyte, even less. So there you go. So lean. Where's this? Yeah, but then I embedded some YouTube stuff because, I mean, people like videos, and the whole trying to keep it lean is thrown away. So yeah, I get it. Like, I love lean, but at a certain point, it doesn't matter anymore. Any serious web development? For HTML to update, you have to wait for your whole server to reload, which can be way slower even if you internalize like I don't just in the other video I showed how it's like less than a second and my Rust app is already up. I barely can switch to the web browser, but yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think that's enough about it. I'll wrap up this one. Cheers.